Well, it was about a week ago that I set the tires on these wheels that I built for the Yellowstone Park Stagecoach. They aren't completely finished yet, but I am going to mount them on the undercarriage because I would like to get it out of the way and then see if I can't unravel some of the puzzle of the parts to the body that I cut out like 30 years ago, whatever, something like that. So that's kind of my next step, is to shift from the undercarriage to the bodywork. It has been quite a while since I cut these pieces out. So they've gone through the fire, remember, in '05, so they have a little water stain on them. I'm going to have to take the sander and clean some of that up and see just what I have to work with. So this style of framework is the foundation of this 8-passenger coach, and there are many of the 11-passenger coaches that are built on this same style of framework. This is only one style, but it is probably the most popular style that I have seen. There is another style that doesn't have this sideboard to the main frame. And what this sideboard does is it drops the floorboard about another 5 to 6 inches below the top of this frame. There's another style that I have just put a name to of the economy style coach. And this I would call the deluxe style. Now, I have mentioned in the past that when I've restored these Yellowstone coaches, I end up with a lot of rotted old parts, but I saved those parts, and I have a number of shelves that contain a lot of these old parts. They weren't good enough to leave in the original coach, but they were good enough for patterns. So when I rebuilt these coaches, I saved this old wood. And I have a couple of main frames here that show you the differences between the two styles that I was just mentioning. These two that I have here are from two different coaches, but you can see the main body of the frame here, and then it has this side panel attached to it, and then the floorboards come down here. This one here actually still has an ironwork that goes underneath this floorboard. The floorboards would set here, but you can see it is the same style as this one here. This one here, however, is different. This is the main frame, and it's a lot heavier here. It doesn't have the sideboards that extend the floorboards lower. This main frame, actually, the floorboards sit on top. So the difference in these two styles ends up in the side panel. The side panel of this style of coach is much narrower because the floorboards come down lower. You want from the seat base to the floorboards typically about 17 inches. Well, this allows another 3 inches drop to the floorboard, so this side panel and the seat frame doesn't have to be quite as tall. So the effect is a narrower panel and much sleeker and more refined looking. But since the floorboards on this frame here have to sit on top, the side panel has to come down this extra depth. So to have that 17-inch seat base here for comfortable leg room, you have to add this extra 3 inches. So you end up with a 20-inch sideboard as opposed to a 14-inch sideboard on this panel here. So this one is much thicker, but it is more flat as well. It doesn't have as much of a banana shape to it. So it's easier to build, but it is blockier looking than this framework style. In the dozen or so Yellowstone Park coaches that I have restored, I've only had a couple of these come through. The majority of these are of this style. I don't know if that is an age factor or it was a cost factor. This, I think, is probably a little easier to build because the panels are less curved. This is a little more complicated, and this is the style that we're going to rebuild here. So this is actually the right side frame that correlates with this framework here. And so you can see the similarities in style as it would set somewhere about like so. The ends of these are pretty rotted off, but this iron tells us pretty close to where this needs to be. And suspecting this hole would have to be up into this front frame. This back framework is also pretty rotted off, but similar, this iron comes in and bolts into this rear framework. So we can get kind of an alignment from this joint work. And then this stair step that incorporates the driver's seat, you can see that we can kind of line that up. So that gives us kind of an alignment process. So this other framework is actually better as far as the joint work goes. It has the ends less rotted off. It is also the right side frame. So the advantage we have here is in the joint work. And it's in much better condition than this one is here. On the front end for this driver's box, the joint work for that framework also is a little more clear to give us an indication of the placement of this frame. So this framework is nice for the joint work. This old framework is nice because it gives me the depth of the floorboards, also shows me the placement of the screws. And then there is a set of rivets that go through this vertical board that is riveted through this iron that is a little more secure than just depending on the screws. And it shows us not only the placement of the rivets, we also have the placement of some screws, but also initially when they tacked the floorboards on, they were literally just nailed on to keep them in place before the screws were assembled and then finally the rivets. So these floorboards were held on in three fashions: nails, screws, and rivets. So this is usually my first step, is to assemble the main frame. It's kind of like building a house. You have to start out with the main foundation, and this is the foundation of the whole coach body. Now I do have a lot of pieces here that I need to sort through. Some I recognize and some are a little more vague, but I think they'll help sort themselves. Like I say, some of these I recognize, some of them a little more vague, but there are parts of this that the joint work lines up on, and there are a number of these that are duplicates, like the main frame, what I would call the rib cage. I'm going to try to just sort these into pairs or sets. And sometimes just the process of elimination will help sort out what's left. Kind of figure out this puzzle of just what goes where. There's a pair. So this was all made, like I say, years ago. And so my memory is not the super best. Trying to figure out what goes where. There's a set of 4. This goes to the driver's box. This is incorporated into the driver's box. This is recognized as the driver's boot frame. These seem to be a pair. One I notched for the framework that goes down the side to the seats. Some of these don't have any joint work in them, but they'll kind of help sort themselves. And part of the advantage of having the remnants of this 11-passenger Stagecoach is that much of the joint work is the same. They just have an extra seat, so it's an extra foot or 18 inches longer, whatever that is. But the general framework style is the same. So this is going to help me as well. So the first part of this video, when I'm doing all the sanding, wasn't so much that's interesting about sanding, but through the process of me showing you that, It gets to show you some of the curves, the joint work, the angles, and some complicated joint work that is involved in putting this all together. And this I did 30 years ago. I look at it now, it's pretty impressive. I put a lot of work into this and never put it together. But this is the foundation of my 8-passenger coach, so this is where I'm going to start. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I don't think that I have it all clear in my mind, but I've done enough of them in the past and I have enough old ones here. I think it's going to come together. Kind of looking forward to it. Hope you are too. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for watching.